We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in volume 28, Chelek of Ches. This is the first Sicha for the portion of Shelach. We're learning this in memory of Harav Levi Yitzchok ben Chaim Tzvi to benefit his soul. So in this Sicha is a Rashi Sicha. The Rebbe is Mechadish that when the top Pasuk talks about the Nephilim, about the giants called Nephilim, is different in the pasuk over here than that what we learned in Bereshis about the Nephilim. Over here, Rashi says that the Nephilim means they fell from the sky, talking about angels. And earlier, Rashi says Nephilim means because Noflu v'pilu min ha'olam, that means the world, nothing to do with angels. Why Rashi changes, the Rebbe explains, because you have to add, the Pasuk adds after Kolev silenced them and said that, the Eibishter can take care of us. The Meraglim went back and said, as if to say, God forbid, that they're higher, they're stronger than Hashem. And that's why he calls them the Nephilim. He also calls them from the sky and Shamchazai, which points to the fact that they are able and they are going against Hashem himself. And that was the argument that, as if to say, Hashem himself cannot take care of them. As we'll see, we'll go step by step. So, Aleph. In Haitik Sedra werd erzählt wegen Chet HaMaraglim. In today's portion, the portion of Shelach, it's related about the sin of the scouters, the Maraglim. Zeir Hoitzoas Diba al Haaretz, the fact that they spoke bad, they brought out bad talk about the land, about Eretz Yisrael. Und zwischen die Inyone Diba was gesagt, so some of the they badmouthed what they said is given is Vishomra Inu es Hanifilim Bnei Anok min Hanifilim. Over there, meaning while they were scouting the land of Canaan, they saw the Nephilim, who are sons of the giants, Nephilim bnei Anok, min ha-Nephilim, from those Nephilim. So here we'll see this duplicate language over here, the Nephilim, from the Nephilim. And therefore, because we saw these Nephilim, the Bnei Anok, the Nephilim, the giants, the sons of the giants from the giants, so in our eyes, we looked as grasshoppers towards these giants. And so we were, in their eyes, they looked at us as grasshoppers because of the difference of size between the scouters and the giants. So they were saying bad, they're trying to scare off the people about Eretz Yisrael, about Eretz Canaan not being able to conquer them. Stellt sich Rashi auf dem Wort Hanephilim. So Rashi quotes the word Nephilim, Hanephilim, and is mefarish, and Rashi explains Anokim, that the Nephilim is giants, mibnei Shamchazai ve'azoil. Those are the children, the descendants of Shamchazai and Azoil. These were two angels, shenoflu min hashamayim b'meider enesh. They had fallen from the sky, from the heavens, in the days of the generation of Enish. And these Anokim, the Nephilim, were the Bnei Anok min HaNephilim, were their descendants. Okay. What is Rashi trying to tell us over here? What's the problem? So the Farshim say because there's a duplicate language. B'shomreinu HaNephilim means we saw the giants, Bnei Anok, who are giants, the children of giants. Min HaNephilim, from those who fell, meaning that's an addition. they fell, the first Nephilim means giants. So learn the Mefarshim. So Mefarshim learn. As Rashi bavorim the Schwerigkeit von dem Kefel Loschen, that Rashi is cautioning here, answering the difficulty because there seems to be a Kefel Loschen, there's a double language. Nephilim in Posik. There's two times Nephilim in the Posik. It says Hanephilim, who are the sons of Anak B'nai min Hanephilim. What's Nephilim min Hanephilim two times? Is Rashi Masbir. As the zweimal Nephilim haben jeder von sie an anderer Obteich. That the two times Nephilim, each one of these Nephilim has a different translation. The Esther Nephilim meant Anokim. The first Nephilim means giant. So that's the first Nephilim, giant. Virashi touched in Parshas Bereshis. As Rashi already translates in the portion of Bereshis, as Nephilim b'lashon Ivris Loshen Anokim Hu, that Nephilim in Loshen Ivris is giants. So basically, Nephilim means giants. Und der zweite Mal, and the zweite Mal, when it says Bnei Anok min ha-Nephilim, is Melosh Nephilah shenaflu min ha-shamayim. That comes from the language Nephilah, that they fell from the sky. Und der Pshat in Posik is, so what's the meaning of the Posik? As they haben gesehen, the Anokim, that they had seen, these giants was haben gestammt, which came from Me'oisam, their lineage was from those shenoflu min hashamayim shehem sham chazeh v'azoil. They came from those that had fallen from the sky, which is sham chazeh v'azoil. Okay, so that's how they translate. But in that case, fragt der Rebbe, man darf aber verstehen, neusev auf der Schwierigkeit in seiner Pirush kedel kamas The Rebbe will later on in Siv Gimel explain that there is still there is a difficulty in the pasuk that was actually be the basis for the Rebbe's shot, as the Rebbe sees Rashi. But Rashi, according to their interpretation, Rashi doesn't answer the question that's presented in Ois Gimel. I mean, what is the Rabbi Nois Gimel discusses over there after the Kolev, and they were already debating them, and they sort of told them that they already talked about that they saw these great, the big people there. What is this, a whole second round that they're saying again about the Anokim? So that's a difficulty that we have, according to them. They don't explain that. But the questions we have right here is Lemay Nafkemina. What difference does it make in Pshute Shal Mikra Tzavisa? Why do we need to know this in the literal meaning of the verse? Aleph, as the Nephilim shenoflu min hashamayim hom gehesu sham chazei v'azoil. That these Nephilim that fell from the sky are called Shamchazi Vazol, their names. Why do we have to know this? Beis, as their Nefila is given b'meider enish, and that when did they fall in the generation, the days of the generation of enish? What does that have to do in the simple meaning? Just say minan film shnaflu min hashamayim. Why Shamchazi Vazol? Who names them? Why do we need their names? And why do we need the to place it in time? As we'll see, as the Rebbe will explain later on, there's a lot of meaning to it, as the Rebbe explains. Nochmed is the Tmiyah. Even further is the question. The surprise is because compare this to the Rashi in Parshas Bereshis. Over there, Rashi doesn't seem to tell us any names over there. That's the main place of the story. Beim Posik, Hanephilim hoye ba'oretz in Parshas Bereshis, the Nephilim in Parshas Bereshis, gefindt man nicht, as Rashi soll mit dir sein. Over there we don't find Rashi to inform us the Namen von the Nephilim, the names of those who have fallen from the skies. Over there is Tumah. V'bald as b'mokim Sipur Amura. since in the place where the story is originally told about the Nephilim falling down in Parshas Breshis, in the portion of Breshis Hot, Rashi need gefunden vernötigt zu bringen the Nemen. Rashi didn't find it that it was important to bring the names from the Nephilim, from those who fell down. Davke be Parshas Seinu with the Inyan Nephilim ver der Mond nor der Chagav. Only in our Parsha, where the idea of Nephilim is mentioned, by the way, they're talking about they saw the Nephilim, not about the birth of the Nephilim. Darf Rashi loves and wissen their name? So Rashi needs to tell us their names. Why would Rashi find it important over here to tell us their names? Oich darf haben abir benegeya the name for the Nephilim. We also need an explanation. We find in different places Rashi chooses the name of Shamchazai. In other places, it's different. The first name, it's Azoel, yes, but Shamchazai Lavdavke, not everybody agrees. Why does Rashi specifically choose Shamchazai? Benegay the name for the Nephilim Shenoflim and Hashemayim, as far as the names of the Nephilim that fell from the sky, Gefitmen in Chazal Tzveideis. We find two opinions in the Seder Lesson Memory. In Meseches Yoimo werd gebracht, over there it says, Maisa Uza Vazoil. So over there, it's not Shamchazai, but it's Uza and Azoil. So why does Rashi have Shamchazai? Over there it's Masa, Uza, and Azoil, but Uza and Azoil, not Shamchazai. Azoil brings some Medrashim, and like this is brought down in many places in the Medrash. Aber Targum Yonason sagt, but the Targum Yonason says Shamchazai v'Uziel. Well, derech zeh Mesichen Tzeches Nida, also we find in Tzeches Nida, Sichen ve'Eig were Bnei Achei, they were also giant, but they were the sons of the brothers Bar, who were the Bnei Achaya. The Achaya was Bar Shamchazai. So he was the son of Achaz. So there we're talking about Shamchazai. So we see the name Shamchazai as the angels. Ubepirush Rashi Sham Shabo Mishamchazai Vazoel. And Rashi explains there that he comes from Shamchazai and Azoel. So we see it mentions Shamchazai. Razek breaks in other places. So it was brought in other places. So basically, in some places it says Shamchazai and Azoel or Uziel. In some places it says Uzo and Azil, as the Rebbe brings down. So why does Rashi choose to bring down Shamchazai versus Uzo? Why does Rashi choose specifically the opinion Shamchazai v'Azoil unit Uzo v'Azoil, and not Uzo v'Azoil? So basically, the Rebbe brings down here that some Mefarshim explain that what Rashi is trying to tell us is the duplicate Lashon Nephilim. One means giants, the other one means giants, Min HaNephilim, that fell from the sky. But the Rebbe wonders, why do we need the name Shamchazai v'Azoil? Why does it need to say that it wasn't the Der Enish? And why did Rashi choose it? Rashi gives the names. Rashi didn't say it before in Parshas Breshis. And why did Rashi choose the names, which is only one opinion? Some people say it was Uzo and Azel. Rashi says Shamchazai. So what's going on over here that needs all explanation? So that's the question in Isalav. And then the Rebbe actually is going to argue that previously right now we are assuming that in the Parshas Bereshis it already talks about the Nephilim, but it doesn't say their names, who they are. The Rebbe argues now that Nephilim over there does not mean they fell from the sky. There's no mention, no hint of that. Over there, Nephilim means that they fell from their level, or they fell from this world. They ended up in being destroyed from the world, not fallen from the sky. And the Rebbe argues that over there, Beferish Nephilim does not mean it's not like Nephilim like it says over there B'nei Anok. That's the Rebbe is going to argue. Base. Noisef, if there is Sofa from Rashi, do b'negeya, the Shemes Hanifilim. In addition to Rashi's additions to here, the Rashi doesn't just say they fell from the sky, but it says the names of the Nephilim. Is in them etzem uptight from word Nephilim, Faran l'chei Rashi nibin Rashi. The how to translate the word Nephilim seems to be a difference in Rashi. Do be parsha seinu zokt Rashi here in our parsha. Rashi says shenoflu min hashamayim. Nephilim means they fell from the sky. Mashenkin posik hanefilim hoyu ba'aretz. When it says there that the Nephilim were in the land in the posik in Bereshis, Taich Rashi says al shem shenoflu because they fell, and also v'ipilu es ha'olam, and they fell. They made the world fall. So if everybody looks at this Rashi, thinks right away is that what does it mean noflu? Because they fell. Where did they fall? They fall from the sky. But everybody says no, it can't be. Naflu means they fell from this world because it says naflu v'ipilu. The same thing. They fell. What did they destroy? They destroyed the world. Naflu from this world, not min hashamayim. Rashi taiched al shem shenaflu v'ipilu asa oilam was der taiched for naflu bepashtus. The simple meaning of the word they fell, it's literally, is azay zainen never givonim min ha'olam. They fell, they got lost, they were destroyed from this world. Al derech hipilu es ha'olam. Just like it says they destroyed the world, so they fell from the world. Rashi says it immediately, naflu v'ipilu. It's talking about the same thing. So what kind of a world is it? Even though the Rebbe brings down now some enforcement, the brackets want to say he fell from the world, meaning from the upper world. But the Rebbe said there's no hint of Rashi, there's no hint about angels, there's no hint about the Shamayim, there's nothing, it just says Naflu v'ipilu. Rashi doesn't say that. As Einan Faran, Mefarshim, Vazogam, there are other commentaries that say, as Kavonas Rashi dort, is naflu min ha'olam. Now, what does it mean, naflu min ha'olam? Ratzoneh loymar min ha'olam ha'olim shem shamayim. From the world means the supreme world, which is the heavens. Azay Rashi touched up beparsha seinu shenaflu min hashamayim. As Rashi said, they fell from the sky. It's over there too. It means min ha'olam means from the ha'olam ha'olim. Aber l'chayre tzarichin godel. But seemingly, you need to look in very deeply. This is very difficult to say. Whether we can say that this is what Rashi means, naflu min ha'olam and ha'olam ha'elyon, like here. Hayois asizevdem nito kain remes. There is no hint, afilu b'loshon Rashi, even in Rashi's language. Forget about that. Rashi doesn't say it explicitly. There's not even a hint to it in Rashi's language. On the contrary, it simply goes kinal. Rashi zok beide b'chotamach. Rashi says both. Naflu v'ipilu, shenaflu v'ipilu so'ilom. If hipilu means the world, which world are we talking about? This world. So naflu means that world, that they hipilu. So if that's the case, that Nephilim over there means something else. So where does Rashi take it to come up with a whole new taich Nephilim over here that they fell from the sky? It's to move Yosef. Favos is Rashi dom mishane from sein pirush in Parashat Bereshis. So why does Rashi change his commentary, his interpretation of the Nephilim from the way he does it in Parashat Bereshis? Und sagt anayim pirush and aflu min hashamayim. It comes up with a new interpretation that they fell from the shamayim, from the sky. Well, you can't say, well, if they just fell from the world, how does that scare the people? I mean, the Meraglim were using this as a scare tactic against the people shouldn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael, to Eretz Canaan. And if they fell, what is that as a scare tactic? The Rebbe explains. Pirush Naflu v'Pilos ha'olam, because even according to this interpretation, that they fell and had the world fall, is verstandig with the Hadgoshim and Anefilim et onvar von Apachat Eviden. It's understood that this emphasis, min Hanefilim, will throw a dread on the Yid. Ubefrat Leutzen zweiten Pirush in Rashi dort, especially according to Rashi's second Pirush there, of the Werter Anshe Hashem, that because they fell and they, in other words, they, first of all, the Rebbe argues the Noflu Vihipilu, they fell, but they also destroyed the world together. And that is going to throw a dread that's going to make the Jews worried and not want to go. Ubefrat, zweiten Pirush in Rashi dort, especially according to the second interpretation over there in Rashi, of the Werter Anshe Hashem, the words in the post is Anshe Hashem. What does it mean, Anshe Hashem? So that says Anshe Shimomin, people of desolation, Sheshomim Wasoilim, that desolated the world. So that means that they're Naflu Vihipilu to the extent that they desolated the world, and that's that they fell. This is all in the word Nephilim, referencing it, so that would bring a great dread. So why does Rashi come up with a new shot that they came in Hashemayim? Nochmer. Furthermore, der Shinui in Pirush Rashi for Nephilim macht das Shinui nit nor in Eufen Nephilosim. This makes a change by saying Nephilim in Hashemayim versus being destroyed from the world is not just a change how they felt, whether they fell from this world or they fell from the sky. But that actually changes who, the essence, who are these that were fallen? If we say that those are the ones that fell and destroyed the world, we aren't talking about malachim, we're talking about human beings. But now, if we're saying Noflim and Hashemayim, we're talking about angels. Like Pirush Rashi in Breishis, seinen the Nephilim given Bnei Odom. According to Rashi, there the Nephilim were humans. Umalachim un Shemayim Mardachar Shemayu. There's no mention over there about angels or skies. It doesn't say they're human beings. Nobody mentions that, so you can't say that with that. These were people that destroyed the world. They fell from the world and destroyed the world. That's the human beings. Through their sins. Rashi actually explains, similar to this, that these are human beings. In his first and main pshat, he explains the verten, the words over there in Breishis. Later on, it says, the Parshas Breishis Shom, Bnei Ha'elikim. So it talks about in the parasha also the sons of Elikim. What does Bnei Elikim mean? Rashi doesn't say Nit Malochim. That's not the first shot. Nor Bnei HaSorim VaHasheftim, the sons of Sorim VaSheftim. So Nisfilim definitely is not talking about Malochim. But even the Bnei Elikim over there in the first shot, it talks not about angels. Bnei HaSorim VaHasheftim. So Nephilim in Breishis means human beings. But in our parsha, as opposed to Rashi's commentary in our parsha, that they had fallen from the sky, so the Nephilim were angels. So this is very surprising, because we're not only changing the place where they fell, but we're changing the whole essence of who fell. Whether these were human beings or angels. Very surprising. Farvos is Rashi Mechadesh Anayim Pirush in Nephilim. Why is Rashi coming up with a new interpretation of Nephilim over here? So basically, the Rebbe points out that the Rashi over here is adding more than the Rashi over there. Over there, Rashi, here in our Rashi, it says they fell from the skies. Over there, they fell from the Olam. So the Rebbe learns that Olam means the world that they destroyed. Naflu v'yipilu. So they fell from the world, meaning they got lost from the world. They got banished from the world because of their activities. So why would Rashi have to Bechlal change the pshat instead of Naflu Nephilim? That they were banished, they were, and which is enough to cause dread because they were people of that desolated the world, and this would bring dread on the Yid not to want to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why does Rashi have to come up that they fell from the sky? And the Rebbe adds, and Bechlal, this whole thing falling from the sky changes the whole narrative here that we're talking about angels over here. What pushed Rashi to come up with a new Pirush in Nephilim? Before, the Rebbe's argument is Nephilim in Bereshis doesn't mention anything about Shemayim, anything about angels, and it doesn't nothing to do with this new interpretation. Why does Rashi come up here with a new interpretation in the meaning of Nephilim that we're talking all of a sudden about angels here? So the Rebbe explains that really Rashi is trying to explain not the duplicate language, as we said before, two times Nephilim, because we find that that's a common in the Torah. But the issue we have, what is the Torah repeating again in the story that the Meraglim, after Kolev silenced them, and again they bring up again the story about the Nephilim. What else is added? How are they going to frighten the Yidden more than what they said before? That's why Rashi has to say Nephilim. We're talking about the angels here, and we're talking about Shom Chazoi, the name of desolate from Chazoi that I've seen. These are the names and the Nephilim which would bring up. That tells Rashi that something new took place over here that caused this further dread, would cause the fear of the Yidden not to want to go up to Eretz Yisrael. Gimel. Yeshloimer de biyurim alim, so we can say the explanation of all of the above. The Shaila in Posik was Rashi kumt verentferen. The question in the verse that Rashi is coming to answer is Nit azoy der kefil in Posik. Hanefilim in Hanefilim. It's not so much because there's a duplicate language of Hanefilim in Hanefilim. Vorum, that's not such a problem. Saying Nefilim and Nefilim. Reishis called is der Kefel Loshen Nefilim Kishala Atzmai Nit Kegreiser Chidush. The duplicate of the word Nefilim. Just when we want to say Nefilim, saying by itself to, as the word Nefilim goes, it's not a difficult Nit Kegreiser Chidush, as opposed to what the Rebbe will say. Why do we say the whole story? But to re-emphasize, say Nephilim, Minha Nephilim is not something which is a great news. It's always the Torah writes like that. Megafit come upon him. Megafit come upon him. We find many times as the Torah is koifel aloshen sulib teusat goshel, that the Torah duplicates the language in order to add emphasis. So the Torah adds it. Similar to the description, you say at Tzadik ben Tzadik. So you want to say it's Nanephilim, min Nanephilim, at Tzadik, the son of a Tzadik, the Nephilim from the Nephilim. Was kommt unterstreichen? When you say Tzadik ben Tzadik, that comes to underline Goydel hat Tzidkos shel haben, how great the son's righteousness is that he is a tzaddik and his father was a tzaddik. And similar is in our case. As dur zogu nefilim, mina nefilim, the giant mina nefilim, kum tzu had goshi seder in them. That adds the giants, sons of giants, or from the Bnei Hanok, from the giants. It adds emphasis in them. Ubemela in the Havchot of Eden, and that adds to the frightening of the Jews that they're trying to convey. V'lechein is nitoken hechrich zu zogen, and therefore we don't have to. There's nothing that forces us to say that these two times Nephilim are different from one another. So that's not necessarily a good question that would force us to give us a different shot in the Nephilim, that it means something else because of the duplication. Haben verschiedene Teitchen to make a different translation. So that's for starters, number one. So besides that, but in addition to that, the Rebbe argues Rashi's question is a duplicate. Rashi would have quoted from the Pasuk the two times the Nephilim. Rashi doesn't just says Hanephilim, and we don't know. It doesn't seem like Rashi is addressing a issue of duplicate. In addition to this, the Schwerigkeit is mitzad kefelosh Nephilim. If the difficulty is because of the difficulty that it says two times Nephilim, hat Rashi gedacht matik sein in Dibura Maschil. So Rashi should have quoted in his quote from the pasuk in the word that he begins is Oich va'adra be'iker. Mainly, you should have quoted the Werter min hanefilim. Instead of just saying hanefilim, he should have said min hanefilim. Was they seinen de achpola? Those are the duplication is min hanefilim. So why does Rashi write just hanefilim? Rashi is not concerned about the duplication, as the Rebbe pointed out. Duplication is not, it's for more emphasis. But there's a whole other question over here. The question is this whole piece that they were saying here seems to be a duplication, not the words Nephilim, but this whole argument. Nor the Shaila for Rashi is, Rashi's issue is, what's Rashi's question? Is in the Friedike Psukim werden erzählt, in the previous verses, it's related with the Meraglim haben Metair given, the Starkheit from the Yeshua Haaretz, how the Meraglim described the strength of those inhabitants of the land. Efes ki az goimer, that the people are strong, v'ha'orim, and the cities are strong, v'gam yelide ha'nokre inu shom. We also saw the children of the giants, we saw there. That's part of what the pasuk says earlier. Stelzich, the Shaila, that what they came in the beginning when they were saying about what they saw in the. So the question is, Vos hoben the meraglim do? So what did the meraglim when after they gave that report, the Jews didn't want to go, and then there was the contribution, the conversation between Kalev. What did they add? Vos hoben the meraglim do? Bavayetziu dibas haaretz. It says, and they spoke the negativity of the land. Machadish given. What did they come up new? What else new did they say? Legabe zedefride kereid, relative to the previous word v'gam yelida nokorinu sham, that we saw the children of the giants there. Besides just adding describing them as Nephilim, they already said in the report to begin with that they saw the giants there. So therefore, Rashi says that the Nephilim must mean something else in order to add to the scare tactics what they were trying to employ above and beyond what they said before. Is Rashi mefarish? So Rashi explains. As Nephilim mean the Anokim ibnei Shamchaze va'azoil shenoflu min hashamayim. That what does it mean, these giants that they say that we saw Yelida Anok? They are the descendants, the children of Shomchaze v'Azol that fell min Hashemayim. Was der Mitwert move on? Now we have this. We understand with the Meraglim of the Meisiv given how the Meraglim added here an Inyan Chodesh Legamri, something totally new. Those einen Legamri need von der Sug afile von the Yelide Ha'anok. This is totally. They're not even in the category of those descendants of the giants. They weren't just giants. Here we're talking about a whole new category. We're talking about angels that fell. People, they became people. They fell from the heavens. This is a new category than the giants that they mentioned earlier. Was Vekzei hat man gelernt in Parshas Bereshis. About them we learned in the Parsha Bereshis. Hanifilim hayu ba'aretz. The giants were in the land. Here we're adding something totally new. Thus haste mention was davachot zeire is nor. So what is the threat or the scare? Is bigger people, smaller people. Here it's not any more people, it's angels. About these people that are living there. They're descendant of angels. This haste in the Parshas Bereshis and Afilim Hoyu Ba'aretz, this haste mentioned, but they were still human beings. Was davchot zeire, what is the scare about these people? Nor those was they seinen groß und hoch in wuchs. The fact that they're large, they're big, and they're tall in growth, they're high, risen, they're giants. Nor do, but here Rashi says no, there's a whole new category. When gemeint Nephilim Anokim Canal, yes, they are also giants. Aber v'chom gestammt from Malachim. They are descendants, they come from angels, Shenoflu min hashamayim, that fell from the heavens. This is a whole new category of a skiri. So the Rebbe explains that Rashi actually is explaining the duplication over here, not why times Nevilim. That doesn't bother us. It makes it normally, and the pasuk does duplicate sometimes, and also the Rashi doesn't bring down two times Nephilim, so and doesn't bring down Mina Nephilim means that's not what Rashi is addressing. What Rashi is addressing over here, how did the words that the Miraglim were saying now add above what they originally came back and they saw that we saw the giants? How are they threatening them further? So Rashi says there's a whole new category. The threat of another human being who is tall just makes him larger, but here we're worried. He wants to scare them because they come from angel. And the Rebbe is going to explain now why they had it to come on to this extra tactic that after Kolev went and challenged them and said that no, Hashem can take us out. Their response of the Meraglim, Hashem can't lead us into Eretz Yisrael. Their response was as if to say, as Rashi brings down, that even Hashem can't manage these powerful people. And part of their tactic is because they come from the Shemaim, they fell from the Shemaim, Dalet. Und das ist euch der Tam, für was die Meraglim haben das gesagt, davke dort. This is the reason why they said it over here at this point. When they spoke the negativity of the land, that's when they came up with this additional idea of the Nephilim, of they fell from the sky. Weil der Ingen is verbunden mit dem Chidush, because this idea is tied to the novelty was is vorgekommen behazman that took place in the time zwischen sehr frierdike Deburim und die Deburim, their previous talks and what they said now. There was a change that they needed to bring up this idea that they came in Hashemayim. The Rebbe explains. The Torah erzählt, the Torah relates, as when die Meraglim haben verendigt seine Rede, when they concluded their words wegen der Starkheit von the Yoshvei Haaretz, about the strength of those who sit and inhabit the land, is noch dem gewend der Vayahas Kolev Esom. And Kolev silenced the people, Goimer, Vayomer, and he says, Ole Nale, yes, we will go up. V'yorashnu oitzo, we will inherit the land. Ki yochanuchala, because we are able to conquer it. Rashi is mefarish, Rashi, and as Rashi explains, as Kolev hat mashtik given, that Kolev's silence, which means that abgeschlagen, he countered the Tainus HaMeraglim, the argument of the Meraglim, as Ha'om Goimer, that they're a powerful nation, Zogendik, and what they said is, as Moshe had Bavizun God Grace and Nisim, Moshe had shown very big miracles, Shalamayim and Ateva Legamri, which are totally beyond nature. Balikoronas Hayom. Didn't this is the example Rashi brings down? Did he then not split the sea, rip up the sea for us? He brought down the manna for us. He gave us the slav, those birds. So Moshe Rabbeinu has done all these great miracles which are beyond nature. So no problem. We will be able to go up. And the river is all in Ireland. And therefore they said we will go up. Afilu b'shamayim. Even in the skies. Asu sulamis valusham. Go ahead, make ladders and go up there. That's the Dvarov. We will be successful in everything that he says. Not to worry. That was the argument of the of Kalev. Now it came the time when they are answering back to Kalev. Of them on this. The Meraglim's answer was no. We cannot go up to the people because he is stronger. Now, mimenu can be translated in two ways: either mimenu from us, or as Rashi translates over here, they're stronger than him. Why does Rashi say chazaku mimenu stronger than Hashem and not stronger from us? Rashi is mefarish kaviyachol klapa ma'ilomru. That this is, so to speak, they said it for Hashem. They're stronger than him, than Hashem is stronger. And why does Rashi say that? Why does Rashi not say that he's stronger than us? If Mimenu would just mean he's stronger than us, the Yidden, he says in Ganzen it can enter, then that would be no response. If them was Kolev to that which Kolev proved to them. Look, Hashem did all these things. As the Eibishter can machen nisim himself and Yidden, that the Eibishter could make miracles to help Yidden. So that would not be an argument against Kolev's assertion that Eibishter has done miracles for the Yidden. Muzman became a father saying that's why Rashi therefore has to explain. As the mitom ze gemeint klape Milo, they meant that he's stronger than Hashem. That this is something which even Hashem can't have. Aber that couldn't be them alone. It wasn't sufficient just to tell that Chazak Humimenu is stronger than Hashem. Why? Because at the end of the day, we can sich ablegen by Eden. How would it make sense by Eden? They saw all the miracles as es ken sein am Metzias for Chazak Humimenu klape Milo. They say. They saw, how could they believe that there exists such a thing, that there's somebody that is stronger than him, than the Eibishter? They saw all what Eibishter did. That wouldn't make just sense to them. They had to sort of spice up their argument. They had to bring more than what they said. That's why they added new. Nephilim, Mina Nephilim. They were speaking the negativity of the land, saying, they will tell us such things that, so to speak, gives room to believe that there exists, that there could be something which is even strong, even as it relates to Hashem. And this is what the Baraglim added here. We saw the Nephilim. They did not mean the strength, the power they had because of their physical height. They were giants. Because that wouldn't make much of an answer to Kolev's, and that wouldn't prove their point that they're stronger than Hashem. This physical height has no meaning relative to above. What is to Hashem? What difference does it make if it's big or small? So when they said that we saw the Nephilim, that didn't just mean people that are large, big people. Not a toike v'chayzik miyuchad. They were talking about a force and a very specific strength. Was wird gemeint in Wort Nephilim, which are meant in the word Nephilim. Anokim mibnei Shamchazai v'Hazoil shenoflu min hashamayim. They meant these were the giants that were descendants of Shamchazai v'Hazoil that fell from the sky. Noflu min hashamayim. That's the key here. As even it's Tamanokim, they weren't just giants. Nor sie haben gestammt von Malochim, but rather they came, they are descendants of angels Shenoflu min hashamayim that fell from the heaven. Und der Befahr is bekoichem zum Meuret sein gegen Shemayim Chulu. And that's why they have the power, argued the Meraglim, to rebel against the heavens because they come from Shemayim. It's a whole new category. The Rebbe explains that they had to come up with something more over here in order to substantiate their argument that they're stronger than Hashem. First, they said Chazaku Mimenu, because they had to say stronger than Hashem, because just stronger of the people, that wouldn't carry anything, because Kalev already told them they did miracles. But they had to say, no, this is a situation they're stronger even than Hashem, that he can. That's why Rashi says Chozaku Mimenu means from Hashem. How did they reason that? What did they back that up with? By saying Nephilim, they added, they came from this sky, and therefore this is not a physical, just giants, which doesn't really add against Hashem, but over here, because Min HaShamayim, they can rebel, they argue against Shemayim. Yeah, but that's still not, the Rebbe explains. They needed to bring down the names over here to create that sense of fear that they tried to persuade the Jewish people. It wasn't just enough to say. Rashi needs to say the names over here, and these names, because these names would add to the dread, to the fear. That would give even more legitimacy to their argument that no, we can't overcome this kind of opponent of Sham Chazai and Azoil. Hey, by Ben Chomesh Lemikra is das aber fort nit glattig. It is still not smooth, even that we said now that they fell from the angels. Aleph, as a malach soll meidet sein bei Kodesh Baruch Hu, that an angel should rebel in Hashem, against Hashem. Beis, as a malach afilu soll kennen, hob mepes hakoyach durchzuführen sein merida, or that an angel should even be able have any power to accomplish his rebellion against Hashem. So, how do you find this? And that Rashi adds by bringing down the 2 points of the names and the Deirenish. The fact is Rashi Moisif as Noflu men Hashamayim is b'mei Deirenish. That was in the generation of Deirenish. That's when they fell down to tell us, remind us what happened to Deirenish. It was the mit Vern Bavorn Beidin Yonim Anal. That gives us an answer to the two aspects. How could you rebel? How could there be an angel going against Hashem, and how could he even better is because remind us der Enish. Aleph. Wegen der Enish sagt der Pasuk as os hucha likroi b'shem Hashem. But then it became weekly Avodah Zarah. People started calling Avodah Zarah b'shem Hashem. Und Rashi is das mefarish. Also people in likroi shmois ha'odom. They would call people b'shmoy shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'asoyson elilim chulu, to make them into gods. That means huchal. They weaken the name of Hashem. Then others are called in the name of Hashem. Is verstandig. As euch die Nefila von the Malochim and Hashemayim in jeden Deur, that also the uh, falling of the angels from the skies in that generation is verbunden mit Amerida neged Hashem, that is tied to rebellion against Hashem. That was the Deir Enish. The Deir Enish was the generation of people that were rebelling against Hashem. So that angels are also part of the rebellion against Hashem. It's tied. Base, Ribald, the Nephilim stammen von die Malachim shenoflu min hashamayim b'mei their Enish, because they fell in the generation of Enish, seien sie doch nicht. That's another concept over here, that they did not become destroyed durch Mabul. The Mabul came later on, and yet they come from there. That means that the Mabul, which was boiling and flooded and everything else, did not impact them. Durch Mabul says, Afal P. They weren't destroyed. Afal P. That Meya Mabul and given durch Arubis Hashamayim niftachu. It came through the windows of the skies. They come from the skies, and yet this came from the skies, the wind, the rain. Geshem in Hashamayim. Roischim, this was boiling. Vayimachas kol hayikum, Hashem erased all existence. Hotes aber nit abgemerkt yotzech halatzeim for the Nephilim. This did not erase the descendant of the Nephilim. So you see that they were able to exist. Und das beweist, dass starker Desaske kach. That means that their strength is to such an extent as afilu an oynesh min hashamayim oder Eibishter gewollt, as soll auf Zeke Schlitter nicht haben, that even when there was a punishment hashamayim, Arubis hashamayim niftocho, the Mabul, the Eibishter wants that it doesn't impact them. They survived. The Eibishter wanted that they survive it. So the question number two that there was, how could you really accomplish against Hashem? Yes, you see, the Eibishter made it in such a way that they did. And also they want to rebel. So that gives explanation. How does a Malach want to, how is he able to rebel again? Because we did see that. And that's why also, as the Rebbe explains in Eizvov, also the names, when you add to that, give us further meaning to this idea that this was a opponent, these Anokim, these Nephilim, they may go against Hashem and we won't be able to conquer them. And that was what the Meraglim tried to accomplish. Leisvov. Al pizeh wird man euch verstehen, was Rashi bringt the Namen von den Nephilim. Based on this, we understand now why Rashi brings the names of those who are the ones that fell. And he brings Sham Chazai Vazoil. Weil das ist noch mehr matgish sehr starken koyach, because this emphasizes further their strong power, limrate neged Hashem, to rebel against Hashem. By the Nephilim beparshis Bereishis, zog der Posik, the Nephilim beparshis Bereishis, the Posik says, Anshe Hashem. What is it meaning, the Anshe Hashem? And Rashi is the Reif Mefarish. Rashi explains, Oisom shenikvu b'shemus. Those that were mentioned by name, and they shenikvu al shem ovdan, shenomuchu v'hutshu. They were named on the name of destruction, that they have melted away and they were weakened. Behind, as in the shemus for the Nephilim is merumas, that in the name of the Nephilim is hinted that inyan was is farbundu mit zeir mahus, that is something which connects with who they are. And that was is nikvu b'shemus. Shenamuchu b'hutshu, those were the names. It doesn't say the names over there, but that was the idea behind those people's names that were there. Balderach ze binyonenu. In a similar way, it's in our case, as the Nemen Sham Chazai Va'azoil, the name Sham Chazai and Azoil, Zainen Meramis, Evzeir Teuchen, they represent their idea, what they stood. When Rashi Dafnit Oistaichen, and Rashi doesn't need to translate in Vosdos Vastate, and what that consists of. Adosi is that Pirush HaPoshu from the Shemus, because that's the very simple meaning of the name, so you can see already how the name describes who they were. Sham Chazai Vastate zu zwei Wörter. Shem Chazai consists of two words. Shom Chazoi, Shom meaning destruction, desolation. Shmomo, I seen Shmomo, das heißt, as when man cooked, Chazoi, Chazoi when you look, if im zet men Shmomo, Shom Chazoi, there you see destruction. Shom is from Loshen Shmomo. Rashi Taish Bepirushia Beis with Anshe Hashem, as Rashi says in the second commentary, Anshe Hashem, Anshe Shimomin, Sheshomim Musailim, the desolated word. So the word we see, Shem Shmomo, comes from the Lashon of desolation, and that is Shom Chazoi. Udenomen Azoil is Noisef Lozev was the nomen Kameshahu, as it is the name Azoil together. Weist auf der Starkheit from the Malach, represents the strength of the Malach. Azoil Meloshen as, Loshen of powerful, der Mont es euch von Shem Azoil. He also reminds us of the name Azoil, like we say by Yom Kippur, La Azozel. It reminds us the name of Azozel. The name Azoil reminds us of Azozel. Bos Moshe gelernt in Pashas Achrei. We learned about the two goats. One of them was sent away to Azazel. Rashi verteidigt har az v'koshet tzuk gavoy. Rashi translates, what does Azazel mean? A strong, difficult, hard peak, a high peak of a rock. Das ist nicht Stam Starkheit. It's not just general strength. Nor von amokim az v'koshet. It's from a place which is hard and strong, powerful. This is a place of desolation. It's not a place that place. Die nemen for the zwei Malachim weisen. The name of these two angels show point as the name weisen Indian in Ois und zu bringen Shmomem v'churban ha'olam l'shachas oris. They show force and they bring desolation and destruction to the world, to destroy the world. Hepech habris mit Noach v'achrize, which is contrary to the covenant with Noach afterwards. Und Ritzoyne shel HaKadosh Baruch and Hashem's will as zayin yishuv ha'olam. There should be a settlement. They are representing desolation. They are destruction. They are representing, and that comes from the name Azazel. So based on the above, that we say now, we're talking about angels, and we're talking about rebellions, we're talking about Anshe Der Hamabel, we're talking about matters that may bring about a rebellion. Again, the Eibishter himself would not be able to do it. But now that we're talking about not just big, strong people, but we're talking about angels, this gives another answer to another difficult Rashi that seemingly, what is Rashi coming to tell us over there? And how now it is explained very well. Zayin. Api hanal yumtak the hemshech pirushi Rashi. We can also, this sweetness, and this also makes it very fitting, the flow of Rashi's commentary of divided the keverter in Posik on the further words in the Posik after we discussed the Nephilim, min haNephilim. It says v'shomra inu as haNephilim goimer. After this, it says v'anihi beinenu kechagovim v'chein hoyinu beineim. in our eyes we were as grasshoppers, and so in their eyes. So what does it mean that so we were in their eyes? So Rashi says, "Hey, no, how do they know how they were in their eyes?" So Rashi says, Rashi Mefarish, Shomanu Oimrim Zelozeh, we heard them saying one to another, Nimolim Yesh Bekramim Kanoshim, that there are ants in the orchards look shaped like people. So that means they looked at them like they were like Chagovim, like Nemolim. Und der noch is Rashi meitig dem Wort Anok. Rashi later on quotes the word Anok und is mefarish shemanikim chamo b'keimosum, that they block the sun with their height, so high that they block the sun. Why is Rashi telling us all this? Why does Rashi have to explain what the Anok means? Anak means a giant. Why do we need to say manikim chama bekemos? And we need move on Aleph. Avos dav Rashi b'chlal zuchan apirush of loshen Anok. Why does it need to look at a commentary to explain what the word Anok means a giant? Beis be'im muchrach. If Anok needs an interpretation, Avos zoktas dit Rashi frier in Pasik. So why doesn't Rashi say it earlier in the Pasuk? V'gam yilida ha'anok in the Shom. We saw the children of the giants. Should say what the meaning of Anok was. Favos is Rashi mefarish them vort Anok, and then Rashi the order the way Rashi Anok noch sein pirush oivcheno yinu be'eineim. After he says the pasuk when Rashi explains that we were in their eyes, like they heard them saying that there was chagovim. Hepech there say that in pasuk, which is the opposite of the order. In the pasuk it says first bnei Anok. Vani beineinu v'chein hayinu beineim. And Rashi explains the vanihi beineinu v'chein hayinu beineim and then bnei Anok. So Rashi A gives a pirush on Anok that why do we need a pirush? B, Rashi didn't give the pirush before when he used the word Anok, Yilid Anok in the pasuk. And C, the third question is over here, it's out of order in Rashi's commentary than in the pasuk. Is there a beer in them? So the explanation is when Siretzich wegen Stam Anokim, Anoshim Gavoyim, when you talk about generally people, talk about tall people, uh, that means Anokim, not angels. Talking about just you, big giants. Is Anoshim Begoiva Rogel Nitshayich. So then people who are normal height, it's not apply as his own legabe ze oizav involving. They should look to them as if they were ants. Yesh bekromim. How would they say Namal Yesh bekromim? The difference between a giant and an ordinary person is not extent that they should appear to them as ants. From the erech hagoyve for an onok, because the relationship of the height of a giant, like abistaman odom, relative to a normal person, shagova gimel amas, the usual height of a person is 3 amas, is the gamri nit be'erech between anomoshim and amolim, that is totally not comparable between a person and the grasshopper. So you can't say that they looked at them as ants. Und the river, dav kelach river Rashi is mefarish. So after Rashi explains, Shemaiti emrim zelaz and nemolim, that we heard that there were ants. Muzer zogun, as though is the taich from Onok, so he has to say what the word Onok is, Shemanikim chama bekemosim, that they block the sun with their height. That this is not just a regular height. This is something which is a height in which they block the sun. Das is massive mit nechiluk. This fits with the difference that was explained earlier between the two psukim in the first time when it talks about the Nephilim, which it talks about just giant, but they were people, and here we're talking about giants that were Nephilim from the Shemayim. The Ershtemol, when they in here in this which is the before Vayahas Koliv. The Mershtemol, when they gesagt gekam Yilidaha Nokora Inusham, don't have to translate there what it was. Haben sie gemeint, Stamanokim, they meant just giants. Davke Dov, was redt wegen Nephilim, Shenoflu min Hashemayim. We're talking about those giants that came from Hashemayim, they fell from Hashemayim. Seine ze azel chanokim. They're so giant, shemanikim chamo b'kemosom, that they would block the sun with their height. Was their far, vani beinenu kechagovim. That's why we were in our eyes like grasshoppers. V'cheneinu beineihem. Likewise, we were in their eyes, because we're talking on a whole different level, because they were increasing their scare tactics on the Yidden, so that they shouldn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. So they said, we saw now, not just Lida Hanok, and that's why we're even Chagovim. And that explains all the reason. Rashi doesn't explain it the first time what Hanok means, because of their attack means regular giants. Here, the second time around, when he talks about Menephilim, over there, Rashi has to explain, look, how could you look like grasshoppers? The Pasuk says it's still not such a great difference, but that would be regular giants. But the giants, like Naphalim and Hashemayim, is V'cheinu Yinu Beinei. Ches. For Yene Shal Torah, Bepirush Rashi Zeh. The wine of Torah in this Rashi. The Hisofa from Rashi. Rashi's addition, as mit V'shomra Yinus and Nephilim, haben die Meraglim gemeint die Malochim shenofli min hashamayim. When they said we saw the Nephilim, they meant the angels that fell from the heaven, from the sky. Is masim zum teuchen hatayne von the Meraglim. This fits the content of the argument of the Meraglim. Ves wird mevuer in Pnimis HaTorah, as explained in the inner part of Torah. As you do the beer from Alten Rebbe, it's known the explanation of the Alten Rebbe Benegechit Meraglim, as it pertains to the sin of the Meraglim. As their svore nitzuvel narangen Eretz Yisrael. What was the idea that they did not want to enter Eretz Yisrael? Is bashtanen in them. It consisted in that v'zev gevol bleiben in midbar. They wished to remain in the desert, while dort is man oisgiton from tirdes binyan parnasa. Because in the desert you are not involved in preoccupation in livelihood matter, and generally from occupation of the physicality of the world. So that you should be able to totally devote yourself with the spiritual avodah. They didn't want to go into, they didn't want to leave the midbar. They didn't go to Eretz Yisrael because they didn't want to be preoccupied any matters of parnosa and dealing with the physical world. They wanted to be devoted totally with the spiritual service. Because if they, as opposed to when they go into Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Nesheves, which is a settled land, but over there you begin the order for Sheish, Shonim Tizra Sodecha, 6 years you have to sow the field, going there, but does they operate from Aveda Ruchni? So that will tear them away from the spiritual service. Und der Scheurisch Hatos is given Zeir Hanocha. What was the root of their mistake? Was their idea that they had as Ruchnis und Gashmius müssen sein Bistira Zelazeh, that physicality and spirituality have to be in conflict or contradictory one to another. Man kann nicht sein vernommen mit Gashmius die Kinyonim. You cannot be occupied with physical busy with physical matters und gleichzeitig at the same time sich zugebunden zu Ruchnis, sein zugebunden zu Ruchnis, to be tied to spirituality. So you can't beat them together. Und das ist, was die Meraglim haben gesagt, this is what the Meraglim said, Eretz Echeles Yeshveh, it eats up those who inhabit it if you settle in it. As oib mizich misyashiv, if you settle, metutz charayin in inyone Eretz, you put yourself into earthy matters, wird man aufgegessen, then you become eaten up, eingesunken in the tirdes von Inyone Haaretz, in the preoccupation of matters of the world. Echeles Yeshveh eats up its inhabitants. Apizei move on der Hemshech Ha'inyan was gesagt. Now we understand the continuation of what they said. V'shomra inu es hanefilim gomer. So that's why we understand that they said we saw the Nephilim. Kapirish Rashi, as Rashi says, that this means the descendants of Shamchaziv and Azoel, that fell from the sky in the days of Eresh. Vider Tzil Baruch in Chazal. So the story is told at length by sages. Is originally they had come down to this world with an intent for the sake of Hashem. They could not overcome the materialism and the tests from this world, and they fell from their level. But their origination is in Yalkut Shimoni. They could not overcome the challenges and the materialism and the tests from this world. Nit kukendik of their grace of Mila, notwithstanding they had the great advantage, that they were in the upper world. Is biridosum lamata, once they descended below. Not only were they not able to hold on to their previous level, but on the contrary, this caused them to fall from their level when they came down. This was what the Meraglim argued, is Israel as it pertains to the Yidden. Even though in the desert they were standing on a very high level, when they were unconnected, torn away from worldly matter, but the Knesset Eretz Yisrael, but the enter into Yisrael, Goyim Zayin and Zeya and Efilim and Madrigosom, that will cause a fall from their level. So this seems, this Naflu, the feeling that seems to give proof for their argument that you can't be involved with Gashmis. Eretz Yecheles Yeshveh. If you're there, you fall. Look at some Chazai and Uziel. If them Azoil, if them Hot Yeshuva call geantwortet. So what do they answer? Yom Chofetz Bonu Hashem v'hevi Yison La'oretz Azois. If Hashem wants us, He'll bring us to the land. Al tiru es ha'ma'oretz. Don't be afraid of the people. Ki lachmeinu heim, there are bread v'Hashem yiton, Hashem is with us. Even though as it relates to angels, when they came down below to the physicality of the world, they fell, they fall from their level. Seinen aber Eden anders, Eden are different. While by Eden is Chofetz Banu Hashem. The Eibishter Chefetz v'Tainug is in the Eden and in Zeir Aved Lamata. Hashem wants, and Hashem's delight is in the Yidden, their service below. The Far Hamidin Shaloi Be'erech Hechere Koiches Malachim. And that's why Yidden have much uncomparable higher powers than the angels. By Yidden is Chofetz Banu Hashem. Hashem wants us, the Eibishter's desire and pleasure. So we have a lot more what it takes to overcome. The Neshama von Eden is Achelik Alakamil Mal Mamish. The Neshama of Yid is a part of godliness from above Mamish, higher than Malachim. Yisroel v'Kutchebrich Kulachat Kavyachol. The Eibishter and Hashem are really one, so to speak. Und der Riber ist bei Eden voran Koiches Shelach Kodesh Baruch Hu. Therefore, a Yid has the power of Hashem to kennen mechaber sein zu Hofchim, to be able to connect two opposites. Gashmis v'Ruchnis Gam Yachad, physically and spiritually together. By overpowering the spirit, the spirituality, and the shape, the tzura in the physicality itself, a yid has the koyach to be able to elevate and take out that spirituality, can connect the physicality with the spirituality. Bizas ayid kenoisef zu sein, zugebunden zu Ruchnis, when a yid, in addition to being tied to spirituality, also when he finds himself in the physicality of the world, he can accomplish even more. Not only can you stay Ruchnisdik while you're connected and you are in Gashmis, but you can change the Gashmis. He can work through the physicality of the world itself, and from this make a dwelling place for Hashem. This is what Yeshua said. If Hashem's desire is in us, as we bald chofetz bon Hashem, since Hashem wants us, haben Eden nicht was zu mehr haben von Amoritz. We don't need to worry about the people of the land. Und noch mehr, and furthermore, lachmeinu heim, there are bread, nicht nur wird nicht sein an Eretzich, as Eretzich el Shishvel. Not only will they not consume us, a land that consumes its inhabitants, nor lahepech, but on the other side, lachmeinu heim, that Amoritz, they become our bread, which means Eden will as mevarer sein and mezachen sein. The Eden will sort it out, they'll refine, they'll make over the lachmeinu, the Amoritz. The Amoritz, Eden will as mevarer mezachen sein. Werna balabais of their Eretz become a owner of the land, und ihr übermachen. Machen ihr Fadireloi Yisborach, to make from it a dwelling place for Hashem blessed. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parsha Shelach, Tovshin Mem Beis.